Okay, so I want to welcome everybody to our class this morning on a beautiful, lovely, what I would call fall day in December. Fall in December, isn't that wonderful? And I would like to thank you for joining the class. We are going to complete chapter 10 of our Sefer Yehoshua today. But before we do that, I think we need to do a little review of what happened last week. And I'm going to put on the screen I'm going to share with you a map. So that we can talk about all right, now let's see what we can do here. Do you see the map? Can you see it?
Now, yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so we're going to talk about what happened last week at the beginning of chapter 10. Can anyone give us a 2-minute synopsis of where we were in the chapter? Come on, my sidekick, Beverly.
I think this is the one, if I'm not mistaken.
Can everyone hear Beverly?
No.
Is this last chapter was when the Gibeonites went to Yehoshua and told him that they were being attacked by the 5 kings of the southern area and that they needed help badly. And he never hesitated, and he went and he helped them. And I think they defeated them. You know, with God's help, always with God's help.
Can you hear her?
Yes.
Okay.
And then what else happened?
Okay.
What about the one part where Yehoshua asked the sun to stand still?
There you go.
That's what I'm getting to. I'm not sure which battle that even happened with, but at some point he did ask he wanted to finish the battle. He wanted to have time to end it. And he asked the sun to stop, and it did for 24 hours.
Okay. So thank you, Beverly.
Yeah, well.
I can add one more thing.
Of course.
This is the only place in Tanakh where, because never before was it witnessed where God listened to a request from a person to do something, to interfere with the cycle of nature when he asked the sun to stand still.
That's very good. Very good. Now, don't forget, there's a machlokas, a disagreement about whether or not the sun truly did stand still or not. And some of the commentators said that Hashem speeded up the battle a little bit and made it quicker, which seemed as if the sun stood still. I had a big conversation with my rabbi son over Shabbat, and his very, very smart, mathematically science inclined wife, Miriam, about whether or not the sun could actually stand still, and what would that do to the whole cosmos in terms of sun standing still, planets not revolving around the sun, the moon, etc., the consequences of all that. But if we believe that God is the master of the world or the universe, and he is the divine creator of all nature, he certainly could do whatever he wished to do. However, for us to understand that is quite difficult. So there are different opinions about whether or not the sun actually stood, or whether it was a request that time be given to Yehoshua to finish the battle of the 5 kings. So why am I asking you to look at this map? Come on, let's take a look at the what happened here. Do you remember that the Gibeonites, right here, the top arrow is pointing to Givon, sends a message to Gilgal, which is over here, and asks Yehoshua to please help them, that they are being attacked by 5 of the city-states in Canaan, that their brethren had heard that they had made a peace treaty with the Israelites, and they were coming to attack the Gibeonites. So without hesitation, Yehoshua, in the middle of the night, leaves Gilgal. It's only a 30-kilometer distance between Gilgal and Givon, right here. You see this right here. And in the morning, Yehoshua and his men, the Israelites, are there to help fight the battle of the 5 kings. The war of the 5 kings are the tribes from down here. Now, they list it. One was Lachish, Eglon, Yerushalayim, Yarmut, and Hebron. You see all these places are listed right here on the map. So this is the main thrust right here of the 5 kings war against Givon and the Israelites helping them. We also mentioned last week that in this war, the battle was fought at the area of Beit Horon, which we had seen on our class trip, and the war moved into Emek Ayalon, which is right here near Nophi Alone, under the overlook of Park Canada, that whole area. So the War of the 5 Kings actually took place in our backyard here in Modi'in, in Emek Ayalon, and that is where Yehoshua asked Hashem to please stop the sun and the moon in its tracks so that they can complete the war. Now, 5 kings start to flee because they see that they are losing the battle, and where they go to a place, the top arrow is pointing, it says Makeda. Makeda, it was an area, there was a big cave. The 5 kings flee to that cave, and Yehoshua says to his men to go and fill the mouth of the cave with very large boulders, to roll boulders to close off the cave, to keep the king's prisoner while they finish the battles. So today, we're going to find out what happens at the rest of the chapter 10. So if you would please turn your to your text to chapter 10, and we're going to start reading Pasuk 14. Okay, chapter 10, Pasuk 14. Now, we're going to come back to this map, but before we start reading, I would like to remind you that as we get further into the Sefer Yehoshua, chapter 10, and we're going to get into chapter 11, are going to be somewhat wrapping up most of the wars. I know that for those of you who find wars and geography not as exciting or interesting, we are almost at the end of all of these wars. And a reminder that the Sefer Yehoshua is divided into 3 different categories or 3 sections. One is the history of the conquest of Canaan, which will eventually become Eretz Yisrael. The second section is the allocation of the land of Canaan to become the land of Eretz Yisrael under the ownership of the 12 tribes of Israel. And then the last section of the Sefer is Yehoshua's farewell speech to Bnei Yisrael, which all sounds very familiar in terms of mimicking the Torah. So does everyone have their text, chapter 10, pasuk 14? Do I have a volunteer reader? Rhoda, I asked you to read last time because you were going away. Should I ask you now because you stayed? If anyone would like to read, please sing out.
I'll do it, Rhonda.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, Rhoda, we'll get you soon.
For the Lord fought for Israel. Neither before nor since has there ever been such a day when the Lord acted on words spoken by a man. And Yehoshua, together with all Israel, returned to the camp at Gilgal. Meanwhile, those 5 kings fled and hid in a cave at Makkedah. When it was reported to Yehoshua that the 5 kings had been found hiding in a cave at Makkedah, Yehoshua ordered, roll large stones up against the mouth of the cave and post men over it to keep guard over them. But as for the rest of you, don't stop, but press on the heels of your enemies and harass them from the rear. Don't let them reach their towns, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hands. When Yehoshua and the Israelites had finished dealing them a deadly blow, they were wiped out, except for some fugitives who escaped into the fortified towns. The whole army returned in safety to Yehoshua in the camp at Makkedah. No one so much as snarled at the Israelites. And now Yehoshua ordered, open the mouth of the cave and bring those 5 kings out of the cave to me. This was done. Those 5 kings, the kings of Jerusalem, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon were brought out to him from the cave. And when the kings were brought out to Yehoshua, Yehoshua summoned all the men of Israel and ordered the army officers who had accompanied him, come forward and place your feet on the necks of these kings. They came forward and placed their feet on their necks. Yehoshua said to them, do not be frightened or dismayed. Be firm and resolute, for this is what the Lord is going to do to all the enemies with whom you are at war. After that, Yehoshua had them put to death and impaled on 5 stakes, and they remained impaled on the stakes until evening. At sunset, Yehoshua ordered them taken down from the poles and thrown into the cave in which they had hidden. Large stones were placed over the mouth of the cave, and there they are to this very day. At that time, Yehoshua captured Makkedah and put it and its kings to the sword, prescribing it and every person in it, and leaving none that escaped. And he treated the king of Makkedah as he had treated the king of Jericho. From Makkedah, Yehoshua proceeded with all Israel to Libnah, and he attacked it. The Lord delivered it and its kings into the hands of Israel. They put it and all the people in it to the sword, letting none escape. And he treated its kings as he had treated the king of Jericho. From Libnah, Yehoshua proceeded with all Israel to Lachish. He encamped against it and attacked it. The Lord delivered Lachish into the hands of Israel. They captured it on the 2nd day and put it and all the people in it to the sword, just as they had done to Libnah. At that time, King Hiram of Gezer marched to the help of Lachish, but Yehoshua defeated him and his army, letting none of them escape. From Lachish, Yehoshua proceeded with all Israel to Eglon. They encamped against it and attacked it. They captured it on the same day and put it to the sword, prescribing all the people that were in it, as they had done to Lachish. From Eglon, Yehoshua marched with all Israel to Hebron and attacked it. They captured it and put it, its kings, and all its towns, and all the people that were in it to the sword. He let none escape, prescribing it and all the people in it, just as he had done in the case of Eglon. Yehoshua and all Israel with him then turned back to Debir and attacked it. He captured it and its kings and all its towns. They put them to the sword and proscribed all the people in it. They let none escape, just as they had done in Hebron, and as they had done in Libnah and its king. So they did to Debir and its king. Thus Yehoshua conquered the whole country, the hill country, the Negev, the Shephelah, and the slopes. With all their kings, he let none escape, but prescribed everything that breathed, as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Yehoshua conquered them from Kadesh Barnea to Gaza, all the land of Goshen and up to the Gibeon. All those kings and their lands were conquered by Yehoshua at a single stroke. For the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Then Yehoshua with all Israel returned to the camp at Gilgal.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot of war going on.
Yeah.
He was a busy boy. Well, let's take a look at the map and see what areas we are talking about here. Okay, so first of all, well, let's take a look. They conquered the 5 kings, and they did the same thing that to the kings of the 5 kings as they had done to the king of Ai and Jericho. They did kill the kings, and they were hung at evening time. They were taken down from being publicly presented by hanging, and they were buried in the cave, these 5 kings, with a marker of stones. And this was in accordance with the rules of engagement in war that the Israelites had received in the Torah, what to do and not to allow a body to be embarrassed and left overnight. So they did do what was expected by of Hashem for the murders. The interesting thing that I want to talk to you about today, a little bit about, is that you know that I'm a very big in looking on Google and the internet for different ideas and thoughts about how the Torah is viewed by other people. And I came across a site that talked about the battles, and they it was an interesting commentator, it was not Jewish, who said all these battles in the book of Yehoshua was in fact just a mythological tale of conquest, and that none of this had really happened. The truth is we know it did happen, and we have archaeological proof all over the country that it did happen. And in this particular Christian expose, they talked about the harshness of the war of the Israelites against Canaan. My friends, you know that the Jews from time immemorial have been the brunt of every single country's conquest, battles, destruction, wars. And when, for once, the Jews protect themselves and become the aggressors in a biblical Sefer, we are called bloodthirsty and disgusting. We are not disgusting. And while it sounds harsh to us in the 21st century, because most of us don't remember how harsh the Vietnam War was against Americans, we don't remember how harsh Hitler was to the Jews in World War II. Most of us did not experience those kinds of wars, and we did not see the harshness and the horrible, terrible things that happen in battle. So don't be afraid. I'll say it again, don't be afraid to stand up for the Jewish nation when they have to protect themselves and when they have to do what God says to be done. We cannot tremble in fear that we will be judged badly by people who, had the tables been turned, would have very easily slaughtered the Jewish nation. So
Sure.
I want you to understand, while I hate to hear that one soul was destroyed and harmed, it pains me terribly to hear this, which means that we are Jews, if we say this is horrible, we have a neshama and we understand the pain of death. But there is a flip side to that where we have to say, this is God's will because this is what he wants us to do. And if God wants us to kill these people because of their despicable behavior, their horrible killing of their children and sacrificing of humans on a regular basis, their terrible idolatry and licentiousness in their everyday life, then we cannot be afraid to stand up, because this means we are a light unto the nation. And sometimes being a light unto the nation has terrible consequences. Everybody doesn't like a do-gooder, especially when it harms other people, even if they're bad. But don't let anyone talk you into thinking that this was the wrong thing to do. I hope you understand my position on this. Everyone is certainly welcome to have their own opinion about this, but I want you to understand, I'm sure this was not an easy thing for Bnei Yisrael and for Yehoshua. The Jewish people are not a bloodthirsty, ravenously hungry for the spoils of war kind of people. And we have proved this even to this day. So this is just me giving you a little bit of musar that we should not be embarrassed. We should not be upset that this happened, because this was God's plan. Having said that, we continue to take a look at the map. You see that we go from, here's Hebron, here's Lachish, Eglon. We go a little further south. The interesting thing is, when we go to Lachish, what is that bordering on? Do you see this?
Where the Plishtim are.
Philistia. Philistia was the area where Gaza was, and we're going to hear that name in the next chapter. Gaza and this whole area here, in fact, was never part of Eretz Yisrael. It was part of Philistia, where eventually the Philistines take over this area. We know that David HaMelech fights the Philistines. Remember Goliath, the giant. This is the area where today it extends all the way down to the border of Egypt. It's called the Philadelphia Corridor. And it goes all the way down here, and this is the Gaza Strip today. So when we talk about Bnei Yisrael taking over all of Eretz Canaan to become Eretz Yisrael, it does not include this shoreline here of Philistia, including Gaza. And if you take a look at the map, you'll see right up here, right above this area called Philistia, is Ashkelon today, Ashdod. Ashdod was included in the this strip right here. And eventually after Ashdod, there was Jaffa, and today's Tel Aviv. So that happens right here. If you look at the map from, now we kind of cut off part of the south and we look at what's happening up here, we're going to find out that the land of Israel extended all the way up into what is today Lebanon, to Tyre and Sidon, and it goes all the way over to the east in parts of Syria, and so we will see that the parceling out of the land, we're going to look at this map more closely later on, but Israel extended, you see up here it says Tyre, and it goes all the way to Sidon. It was quite a bit more land of Israel in the north, and on the other side of the Jordan, and we'll explain this situation here that I'm pointing to with the arrows, and it goes all the way down into basically the Sinai Peninsula. So and you see that Philistia is not included. Okay, so when the United Nations drew up the map of Israel, it did two things. It took, well, there was already Lebanon, so it could not give Israel this part of the former biblical map, but what it did was it started basically up here and it goes down all the way to Eilat now, and into the Negev. The thing is, they used the Jordan River right here as a dividing line to give this part to the Palestinians, the Jordanians. The Jordanians were here in Ammon, and the Jordanians were supposed to be over here, the Syrians up here, and of course we know that that became disputed land and fought over and all that. But had they gone and used the map of ancient Israel, the division of the 12 tribes, we would have had a much different looking map.
Yeah, here at the bottom of that kind of close area. See where it says Kadesh?
Yes.
Is that
Kadesh. Kadesh Barnea is in several places. I'm not sure exactly. That could be, that's one of the Kadesh Barnea where they the Jews came to spy out the land. There's another here, up here. If you take a look up here, there's a Kadesh here, Kadesh right here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. This map is called Conquest of the Promised Land. You can Google maps of anything. You know, this is the 12 tribes of Israel. You know, you'll get images of all kinds of maps. So let's now go to your text again. And now we see, before we see one thing that's very interesting here. All of the action that has been taken place in Eretz Canaan has really taken place. One, we entered here in Yericho, we go to Gilgal, Givon, and then it centers around the southern area. This area, as you can see, look where my arrow is pointing, eventually becomes Judah. the tribe of Judah. Do you see that? All of that area becomes Judah. Now, what happened here, if you're a strategic military aficionada, your Yehoshua divides the country basically in half. And he cuts off the north from the south. What does that sound like?
North Korea, South Korea, North
Okay.
Vietnam, South Vietnam.
Okay, let's keep it Jewish here.
Oh.
Let's.
The kingdoms.
Everly says it sounds like the Civil War. Okay, now, what is it that it sounds like? The North and the South?
Oh, the Northern
kingdoms.
Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom.
That's right. Thank you, Lee.
Sorry.
Thank you. There you go. Okay, so what he has done is he's put a wedge between right here, the middle of the country, and the south at the beginning of chapter 11 has now been completely conquered. And so the north cannot hope to get reinforcements sent up to the north to help them fight Yehoshua and the Israelites. So this part right now is under siege and has been conquered and basically destroyed. So that's laying waste right now. Nothing is really happening at this instant because stuff does happen here in the Philistia area of Gaza. But now we're going to go north, okay, to the battles up north. Don't forget, there was about 31 different conquests throughout the land. And we're going to take a look right now at what happened. So, do I have a volunteer for reading part of chapter 11? Ladies?
I'll do it.
Okay, who's that?
Moi.
Okay, moi. Go
And
ahead.
it came to pass, when Yavinkin of Chatzor had heard these things, that he sent Yoav the king of Madon to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Achshaph, and to the kings that were in the north, in the mountains, and in the Arabah south of Kinarot, and in the plain, and in the districts of Dor on the west, and to the Knani on the east and on the west, and to the Emorai and the Hittite and the Peretzi, and to the Yevusi in the mountains, and to the Chivi and to the Hermon in the land of Mitzpeh. And they went out, they and all their hosts, with them a people numerous like the sand that is upon the sea shore for multitude, with a great many horses and chariots. And when all these kings were met together, they came and pitched together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And the Lord said to Yehoshua, be not afraid because of them, for tomorrow about this time I will deliver them all slain before Israel. They shall lame their horses and burn their chariots with fire. So Yehoshua came and all the people of war with him against them by the waters of Merom suddenly, and they fell upon them. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of Israel, who smote them and chased them as far as the great Sidon, and as far as Misraphot Maim, and the valley of Mitzpeh eastward. And they smote them until they left them with none remaining. And Yehoshua did to them as the Lord bade him. He lamed their horses and burnt their chariots with fire. And Yehoshua at that time turned back and took Chatzor and smote its king with a sword, for Chatzor before time was the chief of all those kingdoms. And they smote all the souls that were in it with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them. There was not any left that breathed. And he burned Chatzor with fire, and all the cities of those kings and all their kings did Yehoshua take and smote them with the edge of the sword, and he utterly destroyed them, as Moshe, the servant of the Lord, commanded. But as for the cities that stood still on their mounds, Israel burnt none of them, except Chatzor only. That did Yehoshua burn, and all the spoil of those cities and the cattle the children of Israel took for plunder for themselves, to themselves. But every man they smote with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, nor did they leave any that breathed. As the Lord commanded Moshe his servant, so did Moshe command Yehoshua, and so did Yehoshua. He left nothing undone, all that the Lord had commanded Moshe. So Yehoshua took all that land, the hills and all the Negev and all the land of Goshen and the plain and the Arava and the mountain of Israel and its plain, the mountain of Halak that all goes up to Seir as far as Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon under Mount Hebron. And all their kings he took and smote them and slew them. Yehoshua made war a long time with all those kings. There was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel except the Chivi, the inhabitants of Givon. They took all in battle, for it was of the Lord to harden their hearts, that they should come against Israel in battle, that he might destroy them utterly, and that they might obtain no favor, but that he might destroy them as the Lord commanded Moshe. And at the time that Yehoshua came and cut off the Anakim from the mountain, from Hebron, from Dvir, from Anav, and from all the mountain of Yehuda, and from all the mountain of Israel, Yehoshua destroyed them utterly and their cities. There were none of the Anakim left in the land of Israel. Only in Azza, in Gat, and in Ashdod did they remain. So Yehoshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord said to Moshe. And Yehoshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel according to their divisions by their tribes. And the land had rest from war. Now these.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So, do you know what Anakim mean? Anak means giant. Anakim means giants, plural. So it's interesting. Look at Pasuk 21. And Joshua came and cut off the Anakim, the giants from the mountains, from Hebron, etc., and their cities, and there was none Anakim left in the land of Israel, only in Gaza and Gat and in Ashdod. Now those were part of the Philistine area. Now think about it. Here are people who are considered to be giants, big people, okay? Does this ring any kind of a bell to you? If Yehoshua gets rid of the giants, big people throughout the country, and they only reside here in this area where my arrow is pointing, from the Philistia area, where eventually the Philistines are going to be taking over the whole strip here. The giants are only there. Think of it. What story do we know about with a giant?
David and Goliath.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's right. So if all the giants have been gotten rid of here and now they're all over here, one giant will stand out amongst the Philistines, and that's Goliath. That story comes when we read in Kings about Shaul and the battle with the Philistines and a little boy, young boy named David. So this all makes sense in history, in the whole context of history, if we understand where things happened, what happened within them. Now take a look here. They went north, okay, and they went here. Here's Shechem. Shechem is going to be a very important area. Today it's called Nablus. But I want you to understand there's something very important going to happen here. They went north it said to the king of Hazor. Do you see Hazor here? Let's see. I'm trying to find it. It's here. Hazor. Okay, here was the battles up north. They went into the area up here. They went over here into what is now Lebanon. This was the area of the water of Meron. They fought in, let's see, right here near the Kinneret. Okay, and they came down here. Now, the interesting thing is all of these cities were in the conquest of the land as they went north. It goes all the way up here. And it says that after all the battles of the north, and it listed all of them, it said the land rested from war. So we have to take that as meaning that everybody had been removed from the land except the Gibeonites. And I'll bet they're real glad that they are hewers of water and drawers of water and hewers of wood, rather than being destroyed by the Israelites. And now the land is quiet. I don't think we know how long all of this took. I don't think that there is a lot. I mean, we know the period of time, but we don't know how long each war, each battle took.
Rhonda, I have a question. While Yehoshua was fighting on the south, in the north, who was like in charge of Bnei Israel? Who was watching over them as far as keeping their religiosity and everything, if he was up there?
Well, the priests were watching over their Jewishness. They were doing sacrifices. They were praying to God, and God certainly was in their everyday life. But if you recall, at the very beginning of all of the battles, we hear God's name and God's commandments of how to do these battles very distinctly. We didn't hear God's name mentioned at all in these battles, did we?
No.
No. If you take a look at the chapter, it says, let's see. Let's go back. Let's take a look at the chapter. Okay, let's take a look at some of the things that it says. And we're going to see something very interesting. Okay. Let's start with Pasuk 9, chapter 11. Does everyone have that? It said, and Joshua did to them as the Lord had bidden him. Well, the Lord had told him to capture them, and he did. Look at Pasuk 10. And Joshua turned back at that time and took Hazor. Okay. Now let's take another look at Pasuk 12. It said, Joshua took and smote them with the edge of the sword. All right, let's continue. Look at the end of Pasuk 13. Only did Joshua burn of certain things in Hazor. Okay. Do you start to see a pattern here? Are you seeing something? And look at 16. No, 15. Joshua, and so did Joshua. He left nothing undone of all the Lord's commands to Moshe. Look at 16. And Joshua took all this land, about et cetera, et cetera. And then continue in the pasuk. Let's turn to 18. Joshua made war. Do you see what am I trying to point out to you? That we don't hear God saying anything like he did at the Battle of Ai or the Battle of Jericho. And Jericho, there was very specific direction and instruction. You go around, and the Levium and the priests are going to carry the Aron Kodesh, and set, you've got every single minute of the battle planned out by God. Battle of Ai, the second time we fought, what does God say? You raise your spear, you hold it up, there'll be an ambush, it's done. Now the battle with the 5 kings, God says, don't worry, you'll be successful, don't be afraid, be of good courage, you will overcome them. But he doesn't give him Yehoshua specific direction. He now leaves it up to Yehoshua to start using his military strength and his intelligence in how to fight a war. And he leaves that up to basically the generals of the Israelites, the military portion of the fighting men. And then now, once we have finished with the south, in chapter 11 that we just read, it kept repeating, and Joshua did, and Joshua made, and Joshua burned, and Joshua decided, and Joshua went. And do you see that Hashem is pulling back away from taking full command? Because what's going to happen once Yehoshua divides the land into tribal areas? The Bnei Israel are going to have to live under their own intelligence, their own abilities, and they're going to have to do all the people do in life on their own. So God is gradually withdrawing his intent commands. And so the people are now having to make decisions on their own. He has given us the opportunity to use the God-given right of free will. So we see now that the country has been conquered and that the kings basically have been all destroyed. And we also know that not only in the south did Joshua fight the battles in the valley, Emek Ayalon and Beit Horon, he sent troops to each one of the cities that these 5 kings were from to completely destroy the cities. Don't forget, there were people left behind in the cities. These people had come from the 5 cities to Givon. They had gone towards a battle site. They weren't fighting in their own backyard. So even in the southern battles, we learned that military Israelites go and finish off the job. So there's nobody left in these cities. So as we learn, they go north, the conquests take place, and ultimately, the land lies quiet for a while. Okay, are there any questions at this point?
Lower this man.
I have a very silly question.
Hi,
Yeah, so can everyone hear Beverly? This is not on the screen right now.
this is not on the
No,
screen.
no. The same map. So did you want to ask a
I
question?
wanted to, this name right here, the Hivittite,
Hivite.
that name is
Hivites.
mentioned first here with the.
Givon. Well, that's the whole area, this whole area.
Oh,
Okay, and they were fighting.
oh,
See here, it goes down here.
Far
So
away.
it's a big area. Okay.
Got it. That's all.
Okay, did someone else want to say something? Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I was going to ask a very very silly question, actually.
No, it's not silly.
It is silly. You'll hear the question is silly. Joshua must have been at war for years with all these men.
Well,
Where were their families? Did they ever go home to their? I mean, this must have taken years.
well, don't forget, it was over time. And I'm not sure exactly how much time. I can sort of find out. I'll take a look at what the commentators say. But don't forget, they kept going back to Gilgal, and the families were waiting back for them, to come home from war. The women and children were, and don't forget, not every man. We read about the laws of war that God told Bnei Yisrael. Moshe told Bnei Yisrael in Devarim, in Parsha Shoftim last week. We read, was it last week? That we read that some people did not fight because there were categories of those who didn't fight. Those who were had gotten married and hadn't consummated the marriage, those who built a house and hadn't lived in it, those who had planted a vineyard and hadn't partaken of the crops, and those who were afraid, because those who were afraid did other things, because they were not going to be included in war if they were going to destroy the morale of the fighting men. You can't have people who are cowardly. I'm not saying that's good or bad. You just can't have them in a fighting army. So they were at home doing other things. And so Bnei Yisrael was occupying area in the Gilgal area, waiting for all of this to finish.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about anything so far? So here we have,
Oh,
yeah.
I just have a question.
Yeah, sure.
And I believe this was in the chapter chapter 11, it said something about Gezer. Is Gezer the Gezer that's currently
Gezer is Gezer. Gezer is
Gezer is Gezer.
yes, Gezer is the area that right near Modi'in, on the other side of Nephi alone.
Right, thank you.
No problem. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else want to have a question or a comment? All right, so yeah, go ahead.
It's just I'll try to say it in English. It's just really impressive, I think, what you talked about the Anakim being destroyed. So it makes me remember how when the Meraglim, when the spies went to Israel to check the area out, and they come home and they come back to the desert, and they make everyone so frightened about these Anakim, and we're not going to be able to fight. And then it's one pasuk or two or three that they say, oh, and they wipe them out, and that's it. So I think it's very impressive, the change in the
attitude.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
it's very impressive, because now, as we have seen in Sefer Yehoshua, we are not hearing about any disloyalty to Hashem or any straying of the people of Israel from the observance of Torah commandments from Hashem. We're not hearing any of this. And the truth is, it said that perhaps Sefer Yehoshua should have been the 5th book of the Torah, and had Bnei Yisrael not started committing sins after they were living in the land for a long time, that could have been the end of the Torah. But it wasn't, because from after Sefer Yehoshua on to the end of Tanakh, we learn that there was terrible sinning, and we learned the relationship between God and the Jewish nation, and it was not an easy relationship at all. So at the time that the spies went in to spy the land, and they said, and it's interesting, they came back and they said, it's as if we were grasshoppers. We felt so small to the people that we saw in the land. Well, perhaps part of that reason was because there were some giants who were occupying some of the land. But the fact is, when Yehoshua comes back, he and Caleb are the only ones of the spies who said, no matter what, God will be with us and we can do this. So he actually takes that control and that positivity, and he leads the Jewish people into taking over and conquering Eretz Canaan, despite the fact that there are giants and large armies that they fought against. So thank you. Yeah, that was a good comment. Anyone else? Okay. So next week, we are going to take a look at some of the things that happened in this lull of time, because it seems as though most of the area has been conquered. And we're going to see what other very interesting things take place that are going to connect. We're going to connect leaving Mitzrayim with this time period. Can anyone think of what it would be? Okay, that's going to be the cliffhanger. We're going to find out next week, hopefully, what our job was. There was something we had to do once we left Egypt and got to Eretz Canaan. Okay, and it became Eretz Yisrael. So I think we're going to cut it a little bit short today, a few minutes short, but it gives you a couple minutes to have your cup of tea or coffee. I hope you all have a good week. I hope that the little bit of mussar that I gave you about us being a strong, united nation against and being a light unto the nation will be a positive thing for you to understand that we have every right to defend ourselves and to do God's will. And I think that we can never be embarrassed by what we've done in the Torah and in the Tanakh. Okay, ladies.
Hey, Rhonda,
Yes.
can I ask Xenia and Rita to stay on for just a couple of minutes after, just a couple of minutes?
Okay,
Xenia.
because I have got to go to the grocery store and be back
Okay,
in
I
time to
got
go
it,
for the other
but
thing.
just a
So,
couple of minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, you
Bye,
said.
ladies.
and
Thank
Xenia.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Have a
Bye.
very good
Thank you.
week and a
Thank you,
Shabbat.
Rhonda.
Take care.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye-bye. All right, take care. All right,
Thank
Rose.
you. Bye-bye.
Go ahead, Rose.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to hang
Um,
up? I can hang
You
up.
you can stay on. Because we can't have the concert in March. I did reserve the date for March 16th. Ellen came up with the idea of having a casino night, which would be fabulous. We can't have it. It's illegal.
Right.
So we're toying with the idea, and more than toying, of having, I guess you could call it an arts and crafts show, March 16th, including Marilyn Lipman, many of the people who make things in their crafts, Leah Laker, this guy from from Mashav, say it again, Gary? Mevo Moda'in is a terrific artist. And so that's what we're thinking of for a fundraiser.
We can talk about that today at the meetings, Rose.
That's something different. I want Xenia and Rita to know about this in advance.
What happened
Thank
about
you.
the sing-along?
So, which one did she want to do?
Fiddler.
Fiddler
Fiddler.
is only 40 minutes of music, or
Oh,
even less than 40 minutes of music. And the whole movie is 2 hours. So we didn't think it was a good idea. She's trying to come up with something else, but right now she can't even work on it. And I think we should go in a different direction. And I don't think the sing-along will be a big enough fundraiser, truthfully. I
For
think
the
you'll-
arts and crafts, would it be like an art auction? Or would it be, I mean, that's what we have to work out.
So I don't think an auction, I think a sale that people can sell. I am possibly an auction, I don't know. I don't know if we have a group for an auction of art, truthfully, and why should we do an auction when we have a November
The
16th
auction.
date for an
Right.
auction? So,
Oh, do
I
we
don't
have a
think we-
date for the
yeah,
auction?
we have
November
three,
16th?
we have 3 dates and we have rooms reserved also.
Okay, you know what, well, when we meet today, you'll go over,
Yeah,
that
but
one
that's
with your
not what
calendar.
Rhonda's meeting is for.
No, I
Rhonda's
know,
meeting is
but we
for
want to
programming.
figure the whole, I know, but we want to figure out the whole schedule,
Well,
calendar
I
wise.
understand, but
yeah,
if
yeah.
we're
So
gonna
you'll
have this
mention
arts
it.
and crafts thing,
Right.
I have to start
Yeah.
on it now.
No,
I
absolutely.
can't wait until
Right.
the
Right.
first of the
By the
year.
way, I know an artist, I mean, he donated a couple things before. He donated a painting. This is a few years ago, not the guy with the giant painting. But I
Okay.
know another artist. He doesn't usually dabble in selling his stuff, but I know that they already said.
That's why we can call it a show. That's why we
Right.
can call it a show as opposed to a sale.
Yeah, but, okay, but no, I'm just saying, I don't know whether he would or not, but, so we'll go over the details, we'll have to meet about that. So we will talk about that in our meeting though, because then we'll get some more people's.
Well, I wanted to
you
give
know.
you a heads up.
Right, no, I
that
appreciate that.
3
Yeah,
dates are on the calendar.
okay.
And
Mhm.
2 rooms have been reserved, but we'll probably have to switch one from Yad Labanim to Saklavim.
Okay,
But
Yeah.
we can talk about that.
okay, all right, okay,
Okay.
fine, okay. Oh, and do you have receipts for things? Because they've got, are you,
So
did-
I have received some receipts for Greece. That's
Right.
the only receipts I have. Only one of them is Chashbonet, you know what I mean. Only one of them has Hadassah on it because most of the stuff was bought in America. So I don't know, I'll get them to Sandy,
get
but
them to Sandy ASAP because we
but it's
need to
very,
get,
but Xenia, it's
Yeah.
very, there's an issue because of the fact that you underwrote it and the
Right.
receipts don't jive and
Right.
whatever.
okay, that you're gonna have to work out with Sandy and Anita. but we
Okay.
need to, anyway.
But I do have a
Yeah.
couple of receipts, not much.
Yeah, right, anyway, okay, all right, and if, do you have any money to turn in from anything?
I turned it in.
All right,
Sandy got
great,
it. We
great,
had some
thank
good
you.
donations.
Okay, good, yeah,
Who
okay.
gave you the big donation?
Judy, wait a minute,
Judy
Judy
Warshawski.
Warshawski.
Oh, she's very generous.
Yeah, so that was
Great.
nice, yeah,
Uh,
anyway, okay. And when I
okay.
said we'd like to see you more, I'm an inactive member, she says she's very shy, but they had a wonderful time at the Air Force Base, so,
Oh, great.
yeah, anyway. All right. I
One of the
got to-
things you need
Yeah,
to add to that speech that you gave,
Yeah.
which was excellent, was
Yeah.
that we send certificates to acknowledge a yahrzeit, a birthday. You didn't mention
Right.
the certificates, and we
Yeah.
have to push the certificates
yeah,
because that's good money.
right, yeah, anyway, okay.
Okay, next
All
time.
righty.
I was going
See
to
you
interrupt,
later.
but I didn't.
Okay, oh, you could have. Okay, see you ladies at 3 at Ronda's. I gotta go do all my grocery shopping. I'm having 11 for lunch on Shabbat, so I gotta get all my stuff so I can cook tomorrow. I'm going back and forth today. Okay, be well. Thank you, ladies.
Okay, see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.